Okay. We are live. Okay. So welcome. Hey, Fran fam. Welcome to my Life and Style with Francyne. I am your host, Francyne Walker, and joining me today is someone that I am extremely fond of, have known him for the last 10 years via Facebook. I'm just going to dive right into it and introduce you to Kevin Davis. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, hey.
So let me ask you that. First of all, let's talk about where you are presently, and then we can go backwards. Right now, you are currently the Marketing and Communications Director for the Erie Family Medical Centers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That is a new position, fairly new position?
Yep, I've been in it about seven months or so.
Okay.
So still relatively new.
Okay. And before that, you were with what corporation or company?
Before that, I was with an AmeriCorps program called City Year.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Did that and what did you do in that particular role?
So at City Year, I was the Senior Director of External Affairs, which included marketing, communications, community partnerships, but then also stakeholder engagement.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Has that always been your thing, your ZUSH, I like to call it, marketing and communications?
In one form or another, I would say yes. I'm very introspective. The older I get, I'm always thinking about,
Sure.
what does that journey look like from when I was younger to now, and was it really aligned? Is there some sort of
Right.
progression? As you're growing professionally, you don't always see the path, and you feel like you're just kind of wandering around. But then when you get older, you kind of look and you see you have a higher vantage point. You can see, and even though it was some drifts and turns, it was still a straightforward line for the most part. And I will say yes. Thinking all the way back to elementary school, I used to be a freehand artist, so I would design the program covers for our school plays, for the musicals. So even early on, I was always just designing experiences or designing pieces.
Okay.
And that just kind of continued in some gaps in there, but for the most
Sure.
part, that
So
was the path.
when you graduated from EMU, correct? Eastern?
No, I went to EMU and then I finished up at Colorado State. So
Okay.
90% of my degree is from EMU.
Okay. Okay.
That,
Wow.
that's what gets the alumni status. Yep.
So what did you major in for the most part of your degree then?
At Eastern, it was communication technology. So that included general communication, broadcast communications, graphic design, and then there was some interpersonal communication, organizational communication. So it was like all range of communication, which
Sure.
is, when in hindsight, that's what I do.
Yeah. Do you find that it's kind of fortunate when you can invest in education and it actually pays off? Sometimes people can take up a degree and totally not use it, and that's okay. But it's kind of nice when you find that what you did study transfers into real life and a career.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
what how did Crush Media Group come about? Because I remember I always said, we're going to work together, because you just had this tremendous rendering of photographs. I don't know what you did, but it was just like a brushed thing, but it was your thing. And I said, I need that somewhere in my life.
That was our Crush definition. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So see, I remember. So how did Crush Media Group come about?
I'll try to give you the shortest possible answer. It all started. My interest in photography started with my sons when they were little. I bought somewhat professional grade camera when they were little, and I just took a bunch of pictures, and I always had the camera around. And so that became, I'll come to different events and take pictures, and then I always had somewhere to put them. And then it became, hey, can I pay you to shoot? This is my uncle is like, can you shoot our vow renewal? And I'm like, okay. And then that became, can you shoot this event? And it just blew up from there.
Nice.
And so when I worked at, I ended up working at Home Depot. And so I met my best friend at the time, and we had talked about starting a business. We thought we were going to open a club, and that just wasn't a realistic plan. A lot of money, all of those things you don't think about when you're, 24, 20, I think it's about 25 at the time. And he had an interest in photography. I had it as well. And so we said, well, let's just start taking some pictures. And then I don't even know. Oh, I know what it was. We started to take pictures at the fraternity sororities back in Detroit, the NPHC, had an event called the Greek Sip. And so that was a big social event every Wednesday at the Rhino. Yeah. And all movers and shakers were there, and I always had my camera. Nobody was there shooting. And so I developed the website, and it crashed the first day because of the demand on the for the photos. Yeah. And from there, it just went, and we ended up shooting pretty much everything that happened in Detroit from about 2005 to 2010 when I moved. I mean, even when I was here, I came back a couple times and would shoot some things. But, I got a deal with Michigan Citizen, did some stuff for the Michigan Chronicle, Our Detroit Magazine, Ambassador Magazine, did some stuff for Black Enterprise, Essence, all of those. It just kind of amazing. It just kind of took off from there, just from being, I would say, just being personable and not being starstruck. And it just worked out for us.
That really does help. Just knowing, just as a journalist, I don't know if there's anybody I might fangirl. Maybe the Obamas. Maybe.
I can see that. Yeah.
I might. I think I might. Just like
that's acceptable.
That is. It really is. I think I would give myself that one, and I would apologize in advance. But most times, you really have to understand that they're just people, and they really don't want to be. They know it's part of the business to want pictures and whatnot, most of them. But I think it's also important to know, hey, ask, you know what I mean? And if they say no, honor that and move on. But it's so important to, when you are in the profession where you come in contact with people, to kind of be normal, you know what I mean? Except for the Obamas.
that takes you a long way.
It really does. It really does. I mean, I've had times where it's like I would walk up to people who are not necessarily celebrities, but people that I wanted to know, and it's like, you know what? You look like somebody I need to know. What do you do? Be interested and not Be interested and not interesting. Fall back. So that's good. That's a good point that a lot of people, not sure how it's going to happen in this point, and maybe you can offer some pointers, because now we are not person-to-person contact. We're doing these kinds of things. So it's going to be interesting how we build relationships and get in touch with people that that make contact with people that we want to know. Do you think it'll be a challenge, or do you think it poses? No?
No, I don't think that it poses a challenge. It's just, I think it's going to cause more traditionally extroverted people to be a bit more creative in their approach. I'm just naturally extroverted, but
me too.
I know how to, and it could be, because of my professional background, like I know how to get people to respond to me or to reach out to people. But I think it all boils down to being authentic.
Sure.
Being clear with what it is you're looking for, what is the ask, what are the expectations, and just sometimes you gotta be persistent and just follow back up. And it's how you follow back up with people. But I think right now, since everyone is virtual, there's less of a barrier to communicate. Everyone's actually looking forward to. I'll put it this way: they're looking forward to communicating out after 5 o'clock. They're in 9 to 5. We're Zoomed out, we're WebExed out. But the number of happy hours that I see, the number of networking opportunities that I see, kind of taking shape right now after work. I think it's a lot easier. But if you don't have a clear ask, if you don't have the proper presence, on social media, or because people are going to look you up like, who is this, before you respond. And if that's not together, then you may get ghosted in the inbox, or just they're not even going to open it at all. So
that we're probably going to talk about I really want to talk about, you are not only a marketing and communications expert, among other things, but you are also a branding expert. And that's going to be muy important, or important
Absolutely.
now, to have a personal and professional. Do you think they collide, the brands, your branding?
I,
Fill in.
I don't think that they are separate anymore.
Oh,
You can try,
yeah.
you can try to be separate all you want. Some people are successful with it. But just in my experience, those same people down the line, they start to complain about opportunities that aren't being opened up for them. They aren't able to make traction in certain areas. And now they're catching up a little bit later. But I say just own it. You have develop whatever it is you want your persona to be, and you have to build it out. And thinking about it from a personal branding standpoint, you have to look at yourself essentially as a product. That product, when you go and look for it on social media, you're going to look for specific information. You look on the website, you're looking for additional information, and it should be that same presence or just that same look and feel all over the place. And people don't agree with me on this, but I'm not a fan of having different personalities, because then that confuses you and you're trying to keep them up. The Kevin you get on Facebook is the same Kevin you're going to get at work, is the same Kevin you're going to get. And even within that, there are ways where I dial up and down certain things. So, like I talk to my wife a certain way, which is different than I talk to my sisters. You got to know how to, kind of work the strings a little bit, but you do have to put some time into developing your personal brand and making sure that you have that consistent look and feel. You're articulating who you are. You're sharing what you want to be out there. You're controlling your own narrative. And that's not an approach I think most people take. They just look at it as, I'm not looking for a job. And my thing is, you shouldn't be looking for a job you should always be on reputation management.
Yes.
And making sure that the best version of you is out there at all times.
That's interesting that you say that, because in light of everything that has transpired yesterday, I had to think about how I was going to process it and what I needed to say in light of, well, I have a lot to say, but I needed to, first of all, stay focused on the fact that we were having a conversation and I did not want to create, and it wasn't so much be fake, but it was be cognizant of what I needed to say or wanted to say prior to talking to you, because I've got to manage my brand.
Yep.
And someone had made a comment about something and I was about to, and I said, stay focused, prep for your show. Know what you're going to ask, because, I don't want to waste your time. And I wanted to get as much, because you have so much to share. I wanted to get as much out of the interview for whomever's watching, as well as for myself, because I like to think that I'm learning as well, allowing this, while I'm facilitating the story, I'm still getting something from it, which is cool, because I get to pick who I want to learn from. That's controlling the narrative.
Exactly.
But I think one of the things that I have come to appreciate, just as a social media manager, I study different things. And it's like, I guess I'm just fascinated by the case study of it all. I think of the vegan lady, Tabitha Brown, how being authentic, if, so what you're saying is your brand, first of all, they're going to collide. Just let it be and be authentic across the board. Yep. I think of my quarantine bae, D Nice, where constantly during his after dark, he gets a little bit more forthcoming about being authentic, turning 50 and not really knowing where he wanted to go. But now he says, I'm never going back to just playing what people want me to play. I can play what I want. I can be who I want.
Yeah.
So this drive and this desire to be authentic, and to just flow from that place. And I think in this pandemic world, we really don't, we see life is here today and gone tomorrow. So if we're going to be here, let's be authentic, right?
Absolutely.
So that's really cool. That we have to understand that what is a brand? What do we think of? Because it's very confusing when people, maybe that's why they don't see the importance of it, because they don't understand what a brand is.
So it's not much different when you look at it from the product sense. You think about, you know, a brand, a commercial brand, and it's the company, it's the people, it's the logo, it's the customer experience when they buy the product. It's all of that. It's basically a promise, you know, delivery of a promise. We say we're going to do these things, and we deliver it this way. And that's actually an exercise we're working through right now in my job. You know, we make sure we deliver on the promise to our patients, but are we delivering that to our staff as well? So I feel like you always have to look at it from that perspective. And so for me, when I look at myself and, you know, or anyone for that matter, in terms of a brand, it's really what do you have to offer? And, you know, that can be in the form of being an entrepreneur. It can be whatever it is. And that is what you want to convey at all times. And it takes a little bit of time to kind of figure that out, but you don't want to sacrifice the good for the great and trying to figure out, let me, you know, going through the artist complex, which I suffered from for a number of years. And thinking I need to get this together and put it out there. But there should be a balance of, let's not keep revising who you are every couple of years, because then people don't know what it is that you're about. And so you should have some kind of true north. Like if anybody asks you anything about me, they're going to tell you Kevin's Die Hard Detroit, Kevin's marketing and branding, Kevin's a Sigma, and Kevin loves his family. Like,
and lapel
because that and lapel pins, exactly. And
but
because that's
I know you are so consistent and so steadfast. I know who you are just by what you put out across the board. So that's why you're a perfect example, and basically a perfect example model for people to follow. That's why I told you, I said, you know, you're a thought leader, right? You are embracing that for this generation. It's needful. It's needful. It really is. Especially from a positive man, Black man who loves his daughter, loves his wife, loves his sisters. You know what I mean? It's very black and white. There is no gray. It's like, we know, okay, if he could speak for us, if we needed, you know, a male to come, okay, you know, you would be the buffer, truly the buffer. At least I would say I would pick you, you know. So because we see a lot of the misogyny, and we definitely need something to eradicate that, you know. And I think sometimes it's just a lack of modeling or a lack of mentors, all of those things. So that's why I said, Kevin, you're a thought leader, you know, embrace it. But and I know you are. Let's talk about that, because you did something during your live which I thought was fantastic. It was the 4 buckets, and it was just talking about balancing, because I'm going way off script, but not really. I'm just not looking at this because I don't like to look down. But you talked about family, philanthropy, your profession, and I can't remember the other one.
Organizations.
But it was so cool because it was almost as if you didn't miss anything. You prioritized what was important. So talk about the 4 buckets.
Well, before I get into that, I mean, what caused that was just the realization that I was just burning the candle at both ends. Yes. Being, you know, for a while, I was one of those people that if you ask me for something, I'll do it. Because I could do it, because I wanted to do it, and it took no time for me. That's the way it seemed. And you look up and your time is just gone every day, every week, and then the time is rolling by and you haven't accomplished these things, and you start to look at yourself and you haven't moved forward because you've been so busy moving other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't pinpoint, what it was. But I know I started listening to podcasts a little bit more. And as I was listening to a lot of folks with this, either CEOs or on that trajectory, just being real bosses out here,
Yeah.
they put their lives down to the bare essentials. And they're like, these are the minimal areas that I will dedicate time toward, and that's it. And
Sure.
so that was that. Part of it was embracing no. And so that kind of came through some of those conversations and podcasts and in reading. And so I say, let me look at my time and figure out what it is I need to achieve, where I'm going to spend my time, and what exactly am I going to put inside those buckets. So I came up with the buckets. And so their family, giving back, my organizations, and then also my personal brand. And so I made sure those are the things, some of them may sound basic, but sometimes you have to have it in front of you. So for me, every Sunday, my family knows they're going to get a FaceTime from Kevin. My dad, everybody, we go through every week. It's a checklist. I have to do it in the evening. My daughter jumps on, she loves it. I always take a trip out to DC to see my sister at least once a year. So these are things that I have to see, and I make sure I keep it in my, my kind of dashboard of things that are important to me. And that's included looking at my organizations. So I'm a Sigma. I'm a part of 100 Black Men of Chicago, and I'm a Mason. And so I figure out that's all I have time for, extracurricular wise, and then the American Marketing Association professionally.
Sure.
But what am I going to do inside of those organizations? I got it down to that point. In Sigma, I'm on a national board, and that's all I have time for, to focus on the branding for the entire organization. From 100 Black Men in Chicago, I didn't have time to mentor. I didn't have time to raise money, but I could lend my talents to the marketing and branding of that organization. American Marketing Association, that was pouring back into me. Philanthropy, I only raise money for the Lupus Foundation of America. That's it. I don't have the money or the time to raise for anybody else.
Sure.
And then branding, it's pouring back into myself. Always learning, always enrolling in some sort of professional or continuing education course to continue to further myself and my brand. And when you look at all those things, they all boil into what is the Kevin Davis brand, and that's it. And so it empowers me to say no to people and to say no to organizations when they need something from me. To raise money, I can donate a little bit, but I can't raise this for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at my time was freer. I had a very clear focus. And something that I did this year with that was changing up. So for next year, I'm working on raising X number of dollars for this organization.
I remember.
So I'm changing it up so it's used per year. It's not just something that just becomes so generic and to the point where I stopped looking at it. So, right. But it took some time. It took some time, and it took a lot of saying no to people, but they'll have to understand, like, I got my own life to live.
Yeah.
I have to further my own career, my own business, pour into these few organizations. I can pour a lot more into a few organizations than I can just putting drips in everybody else's. So, and I've been pretty happy with that. So, yeah.
You talk about it took some growth, but it also took the willingness, because of course it's going to take some time, because you had to identify that you were burning the candle on both ends, and then develop a plan that would enable you to not do that anymore. So that's kind of cool. Do you think it takes a certain level of confidence? I don't see a lot of emphasis on men having confidence and developing confidence. Because one of the things that I noticed, you were consistent with your relationships, as far as you commit to this, every Sunday. You commit to once a year going to see your sister. So you're not only building trust with your consistency, but you're also building integrity. They can count on Kevin to call, on Sunday, and Ava to jump on. They can count on that. So if you missed a Sunday, they would know something is wrong.
Maybe checking my Instagram to see what is he traveling or something. But even then, I'm still jumping on. But something that I wanted, two things that I wanted to say, in that kind of discovery phase. One, Well, I guess it kind of ties into what you're saying. I don't know if it's confidence that plays a role in it, but there is self awareness that has to play a role in there as
Yeah.
well. I was spending a lot of time on the evenings and weekends, which took me away from my wife, which took me away from the kids. And I'm busy. I'm here, but I'm not. I'm there, but I'm not present. And that's something that I dealt with Crush Media Group every weekend, evening, all of that. I was gone, and I'm looking back. My son's like, time flew. My oldest will be 20 in August. My other one's graduating, next month.
Yeah.
And so now that I have the ability, and at that time I was hustling, I had to do that to make ends meet, and to really just grind it out. But now that I control the pieces on the board, let me move these things back and forth. And the other piece of that was just to stop doing things for people that I didn't want to do. You take this project on, and then you hate it when they ask you about it. They're like, "Why are you bugging me about this?" Like, because you told them you would do it.
Yep.
And so it was some self-reflection and just being honest and in that. And I knew with these things that are in my bucket, to your point, those are things that I can commit to, I can be consistent with, and they move something else. They all work together, and it's not a big waste of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned your wife, Ruth. Let's talk about that. Did you meet her during your Crush Media days?
I did, towards the end. And I was actually shooting the event in Detroit at the Woodward.
Yeah.
And the event had about this many people times like 3.
Okay.
So it was just like 15 people in there. It was a good day. There was a black party that night at the Historical Museum. That's where everybody was. They were not where I was, and I shot both. And so I left from the black party and came over to the Woodward.
Okay.
And I'm taking pictures, and I saw her and her friend. And I'm like, oh, she cute, but I'm working. I'm keeping it moving. I'm around women all the time, and I'm like, whatever. I'll circle back if I feel the need. And then I went over there, and I was taking pictures, and she her friend saw my Sigma keychain, and they started talking, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, everybody knows the Sigma, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we were talking, and we had a very, very adult conversation that first day, and I'm like, this is different. I hit my plap. I'm like, I met this chick. It's a little different. I'm gonna say what this is talking about, but she lived here in Chicago.
Yeah.
So that for me, that kind of worked because of my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a certain type of woman to be with me with my schedule and just kind of trust me that I'm not just out here. I mean, it's easy. I'm out at clubs and all these different events, and I'm just out here. And so for me, it worked better that she was there and then I'm here. So my schedule is kind of weird. And then I look up and I'm back and forth, between Detroit and Chicago every week. I'm in Chicago kicking it with her Sunday through Thursday.
Yeah.
Every week.
And I remembered seeing, you would post that, I'm not stalking. I just thought that's what that looks like. If somebody is into you and they're willing to make that trek consistently, they want to be there, So you were there, consistently. Yeah. And I remembered when you moved. So it's like, that was, because it's 4 hours, but it's still 4 hours one way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and things moved quickly.
Huh?
And that moved quickly. We met November 1st, 2008. Officially came a couple January 13th, 2009.
That's sweet.
I moved out here I think August 2019, got engaged December 7th, 2009, got married October 9th, 2010.
Yeah, 2010.
So it was.
So it'll be 10 years in December, right? Okay, congratulations.
In
October. October, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
10, 9, 10, yeah.
So you would you venture to say it's important to have the right partner that will enable you to grow to who you are at this point, or anyone that's endeavoring to I'll just use the young people term, level up, mature, because we can all mature and not grow. You know what I mean? So, but it sounds
Yeah.
you have consistently grown from, you know, back in the day till now, where it's been a continuum. It seems,
Mhm.
even if it's not linear, the continuum has been
Yeah.
yourself as well as your
Yeah.
interests, and it's always been something media related, whether it's
Yeah.
photography, the marketing, the communications.
Mhm.
And even when you post, I said, this is so funny. Even when you post, like, I don't know where you keep all your pictures.
My memes.
Yes, it's like you are the meme curator.
Yeah,
Like,
I have a whole collection on my phone, ready for every situation.
and it is always appropriate. So,
Hmm.
so it's still consistent where it goes back to your photography, where you have these photos ready to use in
Hmm.
any moment with a little bit of snark, where it's like, oh,
Always.
it's like if you don't know him,
Uh-huh.
it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's gonna go over your head. But I think it's meant to, because I don't know about you. For me, I'm just so beyond being on the Obama's internet arguing with people
Mhm.
about, it's like I stand, I stand where I stand.
It's
And
time you can't get back. That is that is what has, if you know me from 10, 12 years ago, that was a very different experience online.
yeah,
To where now, like, what you see means I've thought about this for a while, and
mm.
I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and that is going to be it.
And we
And
get
I
it.
will and I will let people go at it in the comments. I will turn it off, and move on to the next thing.
Oh my God, that's what I'm like. Oh, it's so nice when people can interact on my
Mhm.
on my status.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys have fun, because I've
Mhm.
gone to something else. It's like I
Say
said,
what I said.
you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That is so. It's like, this is where I am, and you guys go ahead, because that's what happened earlier. It's like they posted something, and I just thought, I'm not. I typed it, and then I deleted it. It's like,
Oh,
stay.
that happens all the time too. I mean, I'm still growing.
Oh God, yes.
My type and delete game is pretty strong, and it's funny because my wife, she'll sometimes, like, she used to say, like, why are you posting that? Why did you say that? And so now I am more mindful about that, for a number of reasons. Um, one is just, is this what I want? Is this how I
Hmm.
want to show up out
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Um, is there another place where I can have this conversation, which probably is going to be in the inbox with my fellows chat that I have, or it's going to be in a text message where it's a very controlled
Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
But then, now, not just now, but even more so now, because of what I do professionally and where I am, and I don't need anything to come back into my organization. And people are like,
Sure.
this is what your director of marketing communications is out here doing. So
Right.
I carry all of that, and in my position in the fraternity, like, I don't want any of that to, I don't want anything that I'm doing to ruin something else for other people, or
Absolutely. Yeah,
tarnish the reputation or legacy that's been built. Of course, I don't want any of that for myself,
yeah.
but I also am very mindful of kind of where I sit, and how what I do can impact other people
Hmm.
in different ways.
Um, you mentioned something about, you said something about podcast, and that prompted me to talk to you about, inquire more about your leadership podcast.
Yep.
What prompted you to start a podcast? I know you've been talking about it as far as dropping little nuggets about the lack thereof podcasts that
Indirect focus groups and test markets. It was all a plan.
yeah, oh yeah, it was very strategic. But it's like, oh, yay, and it it's definitely something that's needed.
Yeah.
I'm embracing podcast more, probably while I'm doing something else.
Yep.
So it's like it's like, okay, I can listen to this podcast while I'm washing dishes because I'm combining that something boring with something to encourage me and inspire me or inform me. So talk about that. And it seems like an exciting project that you're taking on.
It is. Something you said earlier, I'm learning to accept, this, thought leader piece. I'll take it. But the one thing that I've accepted as I look back over the years, that I am a convener of people for the most part. And I'm always doing something that's bringing people together or sharing something with groups of people. And a couple of that with my just consistent thirst for learning more and always, how can I be better? How can I have a different approach? Like that's that self-awareness that I've learned over the years through, feedback and reviews at work. And so I've turned that into, how can I just turn this into a journey? And I got into podcasts because one of my frat brothers was always sending me podcasts. And so I'm like, so I'm listening and I'm looking at different topics. And one, there are not a lot of podcasts that are for Black professionals that are not related to entertainment, gossip, or sports. We have tons of those, tons of them.
Yeah.
And that's fine, if that's what you're listening for. But for me, there were very limited options. And when I would find one, it would be great. And then I realized that they stopped recording 4 years ago. It's still out there.
Yeah.
And so the next phase of that was listening to podcasts, and I look up and they're all about Black women, which is great. But there are certain discussions and topics and things that you all deal with and face that I can listen to, which will help me at home with my wife. I now have a different perspective, or managing my team at work. They're different. I can pull things, but then again, I'm still not pouring into me. And so that's a shout out to Jackie Baker, her Just Start podcast, which is a great one. I Choose the Latter podcast is a great one.
Okay.
And a page for my book by Allison Page. That's a great one. But for me, I figured it was looking at some of my leadership posts that I put on Facebook and look at the engagement from them. People are listening. They want this information. They're like, what do you think about this? I get inboxes. What do you think about this? What's the situation? And I'm thinking, why am I not doing this? This is what I'm looking for. People are coming to me for the answers. I don't have them all, but I at least have enough that can benefit somebody somewhere. And so it really wasn't until Deidre Grayson, fellow Detroiter, she's like, why don't you just do it? And that was like, I think, end of last year.
Sure.
And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna do this product launch. I'm thinking I'm gonna launch this in like June, and then the shelter in place orders hit, COVID-19. And so the fraternity wasn't doing anything, so I didn't have all of that to do. The 100 Black men, we weren't doing anything. So it was just me sitting at home, like me and a family. And I'm like, y'all are great, but I need some me time. And so I had the software, I have the know-how, and it was just like, let me pull out my Rolodex and just start figuring out who can I put into the queue. Yeah. And it just went from there. So it's been pretty good. I like being able to tell our stories, and that is a big gap. When you listen, I read a lot of books, you listen to podcasts, you hear about successful Black professionals. They're typically 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, which is great. The stories are still inspired and there's a lot of good information in it, but how does that help me at 41? How does that help me as a 10, 15, 16-year employee that's looking to get into leadership today? And we didn't tell those stories. And so I think we've been afraid to share our journey up until this point. We've achieved some level of success. So let's share our journey now. We've been afraid because we feel like we haven't made it yet. We're not a CEO. We're not an SVP, all these different things. We haven't won these awards, but I feel otherwise. And I feel that the people that I bring onto the show, they have some sort of story to tell. Usually it's overcoming something. It's some kind of self-actualization, some kind of career pivot. And those are the things that we need to hear because we're all journeying together. I may be only one step in front of you, but if I can help you skip that one step, then I've helped you. And so that's something that I'm trying to bring with the League of Leaders podcast is we're here and now lifting as we climb, which is something that I really hadn't seen in the podcast world. So I figured it was see a need, fill a need.
I've got some comments. Maria says, this is Deidre Grayson is my line. Deidre is my line
Yes.
sister. Then Girl Eve says, this is great. Each one teach one. Hi, Peter. And then Lisa was saying something about it would be exhausting to play two separate sides of yourself. Find your lane.
Absolutely.
That is so much work.
That's real. I don't want to derail what you may have some questions to have for me, but I just want to touch on that piece really quickly.
No, that's fine. I wanted to acknowledge, because I appreciate anybody that's tuning in.
Yeah.
Because this is great information, because you said something about everybody telling their story. We have to archive this information somewhere.
Absolutely.
We've got the 50, 60, 70-year-old stories, but then we've got this huge gap. So what you are doing, thought leader, is taking that first step and inspiring others to come along and help you fill that gap. You know what I mean? And the pandemic is a perfect time.
Absolutely.
When you're just like pivot, the main thing I keep telling people, you got to pivot, but a lot of people don't understand what that looks like. So we
have to look at ourselves as entities, as businesses. I'm having the same conversation at my job. It's how do we want to show up on the other side of this? Because right now we've hit this big reset button, essentially. No one knows what the new normal looks like. So take advantage of.
Can you say that?
How do we show up to our patients when we get to whatever phase where we're seeing a bit more? How are we changing our services? And so translate that into being a professional. How are you going to show up to your team when you come back? How are you going to manage them differently? And everyone's expecting these changes to happen. So why not spend this time working on yourself and really figuring out how do you want to show up on the other side of it, and to kind of get back to that, playing two sides of yourself. This could be a whole separate show, but just
I know, and I don't want to.
The concept of
it's so good.
No, it's fine. I have nothing to do.
Okay.
But this whole concept of being your true authentic self, there's this, everybody doesn't agree with me on this. I feel like you shouldn't have to be two different people. And that you're only shortchanging yourself because you're showing up as this person at work or in these different spaces. And it's hard to manage those personalities. It's hard raising two kids that are in the same age range, let alone trying to manage yourself in these two different worlds. And it makes it hard to be consistent. It makes it hard to manage your reputation, because now you're always hiding your social media from people. You're always hiding, you're always having the meeting after the meeting at work, instead of just, I don't care about the meeting after the meeting because nothing comes from it but this vent session. So let me figure out how I can work with this person on what's actually happening in a meeting, because I have to show up for myself. So, be true to yourself. And I know I speak from a place of privilege, because at this point in my career, I kind of pick and choose where I move, but making sure you make the best decisions on where you land. And even if you're an entrepreneur with your clients, be picky and say, you know what, these are the questions that I have. If this is not what this place looks like, no harm, no foul. I can't work here because these are the things that are important. And example of that for me was when I took the position at Erie. At that point, our entire executive leadership team was white, all of the C-level folks. And so I'm coming in, I'm not coming in on that level, but I'm coming in the level below. So I talked to my boss and I said, something that's very important to me as a marketing and communications professional is that I'm always either the first or the only Black person in my role, in my department, in this leadership band, and that's problematic. And I said, I've looked at the website, I see these things, I don't see myself in any of these. So what is your DEI strategy as an organization?
Mhm.
number one. And two, is that supported from the CEO down with a budget? And
Sure.
so she was like, that's a great question. We have these things together. And for me, if she didn't have an answer, I wouldn't be working there,
Yes.
because that's important to me, is seeing myself in the work that we do, but also making sure that I'm not always explaining myself and my culture to my peers, or
Sure.
dealing with microaggressions. And it's not to say that they won't exist, but
Mhm.
to me, it helped kind of cut through some of that, and it would have been fine. I'm like, that's cool, great organization, but for me to be authentic means that I need to see what this DEI strategy looks like, and what
Yeah.
is my role in reinforcing it.
I think it's important for people to understand you are also interviewing the company, that
Absolutely.
it's like you're not just going so that you can get a job. It's like you want you if you're going to spend most of your waking hours there, you really want to like where you work. So it's important
Absolutely.
to understand, ask those questions, because I would break out with a book, your notebook.
But you know what? I think the issue is, and this is again the reason for what you're doing here with the videos, but then also like what I'm trying to do with the podcast.
Sure.
People haven't been given that permission structure to ask those questions when they sit down,
No.
and we're still conditioned to think that
Yeah.
we're not walking into an equal situation.
Yes.
Yes, they're paying you, but they also picked you for a reason. You have a value add to this organization. And the earlier you can adopt that mentality, like, they picked me out of all of these different people, so I need this to work for me as much as
Yes.
they want it to work for them. And
Yes.
once you get to that mentality, like, you go into meetings differently. You will sit there in your mind, you're thinking, if y'all don't get this together, I will walk up out of here. And that's a different mentality. It's
It is
controlling your
the
own destiny.
best.
But you got to have all your ducks together. You got to have
Absolutely.
your background solid. You got to be sure you can make those pivots. But it's good to know you're walking in as this is a partnership, and
Yeah.
not just y'all are giving me something. And that's not something as Black folks we are taught to. Is go in there, get this good job, keep your head
Absolutely.
down, don't make no waves, and then you also are underpaid. Don't get promoted. People look over you.
Yes.
Screw all of that. I'm not a fan of it.
I got another. Maria says, "Go, Kevin." Melanie Nicole, hey. MB says, "Facts." Now, my girl says, Eve, she says, regarding his podcast, what is the most important message he wants to convey? Any ideas on how to get millennials, to especially young minority men, to understand the importance of self-investment? Thought leader.
What I want to convey is what's possible.
Amen.
That sounds basic, but thinking about my own career, I didn't get into the professional side of my career until 2012. Before that was all me working for myself. That was good, but that's not what I wanted to. I wanted to go work somewhere. I enjoy the interaction. I enjoy all of that. That's not for everybody. I get that. But
Yeah.
for me, it took that. At that point, I'm 33, and I'm just now figuring out. And the issue with that was because representation. I did not see anyone in my position anywhere. I did not know these types of roles existed. I didn't know anybody with my background in graphic design would eventually end up being director of marketing at a healthcare organization. That representation matters piece is huge. And the more we can get people in as much of real time as possible to share their stories, talk about what they're dealing with, I think that will help show people what is possible. And I think with the people that I've had on the podcast, I've had Lieutenant Colonel in the Army who I went to college with. I had my wife on there who left corporate America as a makeup artist. I had David on there who's an advertising executive. I've had one of my homegirls here in Chicago who's an artist. She's a creative director at an ad agency.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had people in these I'm very strategic in how I kind of move this.
I know you are. I have no doubt.
But I want to show what's possible, and more than anything, and to show that it doesn't take a specific pedigree to get there.
Right.
I went to Redford High School. When I'm here in Chicago, people ask me, "Oh, you from Detroit?" With the cast of King of Renaissance. I'm like, I went to Redford. I went to neighborhood school. I went to Eastern Michigan University. I'm out here. I don't have this pedigree, but I'm at the table with these same people that have the pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how do you make the best of your situation? how do you network, how do you show up and reinvest in yourself. But regarding my young brothers, I think the big thing here is just we have to lead by example.
Yeah.
Black men just have to lead by example. We can say what we want, we can preach, we can, you know, we can go and do career days and all of that. But at the end of the day, if they don't see us showing up like that every day on social media, or as we walk around the community, this comes back to managing these multiple identities, then it doesn't matter. And so we just have to be committed to them. You know, even like with the Fred and with the 100, I'm not a mentor, but I find ways to always get in front to show them what's possible. They can ask me questions, and if they need something, I'm a resource, and I'm always going to be that resource. I don't just parachute in. So the long story short version of that is we have to find ways to volunteer, be more engaged, but more importantly, just kind of live by example. And I feel like over time, people see you a certain way and not a different version all the time. It's a bit easier to replicate. But we just can't be out for self.
So it's basically they have to see that model, and they really just have to have patience in continuing to do the work. Because like you said, you didn't realize it wasn't necessarily linear, although there was a continuum.
Right.
Your interest in everything that you kind of, like you do now, you chose, maybe you said yes, you know, here and there because it might give you exposure, or it was
Oh, yeah.
You know, we do different things at different times, and then all of a sudden you become a little bit more selective. I know I have, you know, it's like, I only want a select few of people because
it's like food. You got to taste it all, figure out what you don't want.
It's like, I don't know, you know, because if it's not a brand that resonates for me, then, and I am the voice behind their social media account, it's kind of hard to embrace, because I'm using my gift. It's kind of hard to embrace that brand if I don't believe in it. And
Absolutely.
then promote it and then engage with their followers. No. So, you know, it's like, I don't need 20 million people. I can just work with 20, you know, 20 good people. So this has been amazing. I knew it would be. And let's see, and if you establish yourself, oh, that was something else. But it's been great. It's been great. But you talked about the consistency. First of all, name of the podcast, where can we find it? Because we definitely want to support the podcast, so that I can, you know, list it. The name of the podcast, where it can be found, and any final thoughts.
Yep, the podcast is called The League of Leaders. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, or Google Play, or you can go right to listen.leagueofleaders.org. But it's pretty easy to find now on Google, which is a great thing for me. You know, we got some other things coming on the website, but for now it's the podcast. You know, there's always some layers. But and I think that the last thing that I will share is just stay focused. Just stay focused on what it is you're trying to achieve. You know, something one of my best friends told me when I had to go back and finish school, and he was just like, the time is going to pass anyway. So just start the journey now. It's just going to. It's going to continue. So it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be easy, but the time will pass. And if it's something you're really focused on, just commit to it, and get bumped and detoured, you can come right back to it. So,
wow. Thank you. It is finally good to meet you and talk to you and hear your voice and just glean from your wisdom, and just become our best selves, you know, as a result. I think we're all finding that as a result of what's going on, we are more than interconnected. And you know, we can glean from one another and learn from one another. It's just important now more than ever that we unify, really unify, you know, and find our tribe. Because, you know, we're not going to reach everybody, and we're not meant to. We're not meant to, everybody has people they're supposed to reach. And like I always tell you, you're a thought leader. And there are the millennials, there are people in your age bracket, sometimes people older,
Mm-hmm.
that are still trying to find their way.
Yep.
And the whole the bucket thing is just like clean and neat. Not clean and neat the process, but the clean and neat where you really get to
Yeah.
identify
Trim the fat.
what's important. And it's like, no, it's like you don't want to. No, your circle gets tighter, your your priorities get cleaner. It's
That's real. Um,
yes.
your circle, your circle changes, and
Tighter than a Cheerio.
it's like levers.
Yeah.
Some will dial up, some will dial down, and that's fine. And you got to make sure that your circle is adding value to where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's hard though.
yeah, it is hard.
Do you find with that it can be a challenge? It's not personal, but there's certain levels you're going and some can't go.
Mhm.
There are certain places that you're going that homeboy can't go.
Yeah,
Do you find that? Is that
not so much. I think some people have just kind of self-selected out of my life.
that's
They're like,
easy.
oh, that's not where Kev's going. I don't know if that's not the same Kev that was here, and that's fine, because they're
Yeah.
not the same
Yeah.
person that I was cool with, and that's fine. And sometimes you gotta do a little addition by subtraction and taking some of the noise out of your life. You think literally like on Facebook, going through and trimming your friends list and get some of that noise out. But it's like a revolving door. Some people are always going to be there. Some people you talk to every 6 months or every couple of years, you check in. Some people I only want to connect on LinkedIn because that's the only part that I'm interested in. Some people I'm over here. So you got to figure out how to control access to you
Yeah. It's a privilege.
in your life. And you may feel that it's personal and it takes some growth, but at the end of the day, it's time you can't get back. It's noise in your life and it's keeping you from achieving whatever it is,
Sure.
that you need to do. I mean, that includes relationships. So
Yeah.
that's the hard conversation to have many times. But you mentioned that earlier, and just we went around it, not intentionally, but you were saying that how important was it to have someone that is supportive and allows you to be yourself. And it's funny. I asked my wife, and I'm like, why did you want to be with me? At the time, I was still trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. My business was okay, but it wasn't consistent. And I guess I had enough drive and promise and enough to hold for that day where it was fine, to where the investment, made it worthwhile. But I think the bigger part of that is just being with somebody that is comfortable with the life that you want to live. And there's some alignment there. Whereas I'm corporate America, my wife is entrepreneurship, and I still have a bit of entrepreneurship in my life, but that doesn't cause any misalignment between us. And that's fine. Her schedule is going to be different. My schedule is going to be a little bit different, but ultimately we support each other in what we're trying to do. And I think that's important. You can't be with someone who expects you to be one way and you want to be this way. And that's why you gotta have those conversations early in a relationship. And that was like one of the types of conversations we had. We first met that day, which is around that. It was very grown. But people don't like to have those conversations because it's uncomfortable. And you feel like you may lose something, but I feel like if it's going to hurt you in any way, you could have just nipped it in the bud earlier. So
that's gotta have those hard conversations. I mean, well, you don't have to, but if you want to grow and you want to grow with your partner and invest and put in those stakes, put those stakes in hard, you gotta have those hard conversations. That's what makes it so much richer. You agree? Especially after 10 years married, not even, it could kind of seem like a whirlwind, but you were going every week, It's like, that's how a Negro is into you. He gets in
Absolutely.
his car, drives from Detroit to Chicago every weekend without fail. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
That
If you don't feel that investment is not, I mean, not even to that degree, because I was extra, because I had my own business. I was able to do that.
yeah,
But, in just in terms of relationships, if you don't feel that, I don't say sacrifice. If you don't feel like someone's meeting you where you need to be met, then it may not be the move for you. And that's okay to be selfish. And this is what I demand.
yeah.
And you feel like if you've articulated that and that person's not meeting you where you want to be met, then they don't want to meet you where you want to be met. Like, you have your sign. It was plain English.
Plain, and that's another hard conversation that you should have with yourself. Like,
Oh yeah.
It's like, he said what he said. I said what I said. I want this. They can't provide this. It's like, well, it was nice knowing you. Have a great life. And I'm not saying it's cut and dry like that, or it's, that super easy, but it is. It really is,
Yes.
because we're talking about time here.
It's time you can't get back. And the time you waste with someone who's not in alignment with you is time you're wasting from being with the person that is.
Yeah.
If you're single and don't want to be with anybody, that's fine. If you're single and want to be with somebody, you're wasting time, with people that you're not going to be with anyway. I mean, that's the same approach I have with careers. I can get in there, and if I'm in there for like 5 or 6 months and I feel like it truly is not going to move me forward, it's not the marriage I want, I'm thinking about what's my exit plan.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Why not?
Yeah.
You're going to be unhappy at home every day.
And who wants to take unhappy work to home and make your home unhappy?
I've been there. I've experienced all of the above.
Yeah. So, well, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Please come back. We can talk about a whole lot of different other things, but just so it doesn't run too long and I don't hold too much of your time. I know we have nothing. How is the pandemic? How are you faring in the pandemic, being home uninterrupted? What's your
The first 2 weeks were off the chain. Because because I lead the marketing communications for a healthcare organization.
Yes.
The first 2 weeks was off the chain, even though we started preparing as early as January 27th, as I checked my email. We had developing policies. Oh yeah. Once we got word that somebody may be flying to Chicago, we prepared as an organization. I don't know why the country couldn't do that, but
I know,
that's what we started doing at Erie Family Health Centers. But it was off the chain because we're developing policies, communications for every single thing. And then I didn't know how to just kind of turn off work when I came home. And but it was also like a sleepover, because we would be up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It was like no concept of time.
Yeah.
And, we were like camping out, watching Netflix, and had the pull-out couch in the living room. We were like up till 4 or 5 in the morning. And then I get back up, jump on Zoom calls, and my sleep schedule is jacked up. And I'm on a personal note, and I've shared this before, like I suffer from, occasional anxiety. And about 5 years now. And so now I know my triggers, I'm good. I think it was the uncertainty of mentally processing us being shut down, potentially being shut down in some capacity, which would have staffing implications, which affects people's lives. And then I'm thinking about all of that, and just my family back home. Detroit was off the chain with coronavirus cases.
Yes.
People in my circle had died. It was coming in close.
Yes.
And, I'm just like freaking out. But now, now that we've been working from home for 2 months, 2.5 months now at this point, my sleep schedule is back to normal.
Oh, good. God bless you.
It's pretty cool now, but it's giving me time to work on the podcast. And
sure.
Up until about 2 weeks ago, I was reading a book a week, just plowing through. So it's been interesting, a lot of self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of reconnecting just with the family in the house.
I know Ava loves it.
she does. You know, she's a daddy's girl, and I'm here
Yes,
for it. I'm painting
yes,
fingernails.
yes.
Today, I'm helping her set up for a wedding with her dolls.
Oh, see,
Um,
man.
yeah, all of
Yeah,
that type of stuff.
that's
So
amazing. You know, you talked about anxiety. I remembered there was a point, I think it was right March when we saw it was like every time you open up Facebook, especially in Detroit, rest in peace, rest in peace. I mean, every step.
it was closing in.
And I was like, okay, I feel like that corn vat or whatever, where I'm going down, you know, and I knew it
Mhm.
was anxiety, and I
Yep,
knew I was spiraling down where it's like, this feels like quicksand. And
because you can't control it.
you, you can't
No
control
matter
it.
what you do, we.
And I had to pause and push back. I said, I can't,
Mhm.
I need to be off social media, shut down at night.
Yep,
You know what I mean? Shut it down.
yep.
Don't, because it's like, it's too much. And I could not, I just could not do it. And that helped tremendously. And then I got sick. So it was like mild case, but it was still all of that. And it was, I think it was the stress, the all these death notices that just came down on me. So March was just like, okay, uh, and then April, I'm starting to feel a little better than
Hmm.
May. So it's like now, I guess it's kind of like
Starting to come out a little bit.
acceptance. It's like
Yeah,
whatever happens, I had to make up in my mind, whatever happens, first of all, I'm going to be okay.
yeah.
And not to mention that you always still have this worry about family members that have to still go out and
Yep.
come back in. It's like, hey, you got your mask, you got, you know, so you're managing everybody else that you care about.
Hmm.
Like, hey, fortunately, I don't have to be out. So,
Yep.
but it's like, I'm, are they going to shut down? Are they going to open? When are they going to open back up? I said, whatever. And so I just had to tell myself, whatever happens, I'm staying right here.
Hmm.
Whatever happens,
I think something you said earlier, and I think that it was part of the kind of self realization about myself that I think more of us need to embrace the power of disconnect. Um,
Oh my
I
God,
was
you better
for
say
work.
that.
For work, I would have this TV on because I needed to hear the updates, what's happening, what's going
Sure.
on, and then literally all day at work from my entire workload was all COVID-19 related. It wasn't marketing and branding. It wasn't, and it just hit me like I can't escape this. And then you have people on social media, conspiracy theories, and then you're seeing people, personally being affected by this. And so,
Yeah.
I started to disconnect more. I stopped watching, this television with any of those news updates. I stopped checking in so much on my Facebook. Instagram was fine. You got to
Yes.
figure out what audiences actually work for you. But
Right.
Facebook was off the chain, so I was
Yep.
kind of done a little bit of disconnect from certain people. I cranked that unfollow and unfriend. I don't
Yeah, don't
post.
you love that snooze for 30 days? That's like the probation.
You
If
know what? I certain people, very few people get the actual snooze and unfollow button. I've really embraced more of the unfriend
Yeah,
because I don't want you now coming back on my page with whatever the things that
after
made
30
you get
days.
blocked from me,
Yes.
and I'll just ignore you in the inbox. When you come to me and say, "What happened?" I'm like,
Self-preservation. Social
"Gotta
media.
gotta maintain my peace."
Yes,
You
yes.
know,
My God, Kevin, this has been amazing.
it's been
So
fun.
amazing. Yes, yes. Um, Great dialogue off to the side. Everybody was like, go, Kevin, so which I already knew. So, but thank you so much for joining me today and making this an amazing conversation. Inspirational, informational, and encouraging, especially, and I didn't even have that written down, especially during a time like today, whether it's the pandemic or
Mm,
police brutality. You have just been a great light on a day when we are all still hurting,
yeah.
one virus or another.
Yep.
And we just keep shining the light, keep doing
Hmm.
you, keep being you, and keep showing others how to become their best selves. So
Sounds
thank you
good.
so much. Yeah. When are you
Thanks
going
for
back
having
to
me.
work? Are you any idea when you're going back to work?
No, I just told my boss. She asked me, she's like, "When does your team need to come back?" I said, "We do not need to come back until it's absolutely mandatory. We are
When the White House opens
so
up?
we are all fine remote.
Yeah,
So
I love
um,
it. Yeah, yeah.
so I don't know what that looks like anymore. I don't know if I want to go back into the office more than maybe twice a week. So we'll see.
No, what it's the beauty is in our pivot, we can somewhat create our new normal. You know what I
Yep.
mean? As is because that's the time it is. So I wish you well. I'll keep watching you on Facebook and laughing and getting all the snarky comments and jokes
Every day.
and memes. Is like this man right here, but I do enjoy it. And I am so glad I finally got to meet you face to face after admiring you from afar. Even though I didn't get my cross definition pictures.
Oh,
Um,
I was on actually the website. I still have them all 150,000 pictures I've taken. I still have those photos. So let me know. I'll send you the link. I still
wow.
have them. I feel like that's Detroit history. I will never not pay for my domain to have that up.
I know that's right. So what's the website again?
Uh, crushmediagroup.com.
Crushmediagroup.com, the orange
Yeah,
C.
it's still up.
Yeah.
It's still up.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. Okay. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye. Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Life and Style with Francyne. I certainly appreciate you for checking us out. We did run a little long, but Kevin is just a joy to talk to and a great resource of information and inspiration, encouragement. And I just didn't want to stop. So I do appreciate you all for tuning in. We have some amazing guests coming forward or going forward. So be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. This will be uploaded to my Facebook page as well as my YouTube channel for further viewing. Thanks again, guys, and have a wonderful evening. Mwah.